Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing a video all about your Lilith sign. So Lilith is a pretty amazing warrior sign. So she is an asteroid and she basically represents our feminine sexual power. So why is Lilith so freaking important? Well, basically, if you can look at your Lilith and look at it to the point where you can heal it, similar to your Chiron, then you can basically change your life. So I really wanted to talk about this because Lilith is such a big sign in your chart. So it can be the most hidden. It's not always the most hidden, but it is one of the most hidden signs. So it basically represents our suppressed sexuality, our suppressed anger, and where we basically won't compromise. So Lilith also, I found out, is if you really get to know it and you start to rediscover it, basically it's about your personal power. So because it's feminine power, when you actually get in touch with your heart chakra and look at it with such care and adoration and you get really comfortable with it, oh my god, like your life can pretty much change. It is absolutely incredible. So what I want to talk to you today is Lilith. So basically I'm going to be looking into your Lilith sign. So if you'd like to check out your Lilith sign and you want to see what sign it's in and you want to know how to really drastically friggin' change your life and take back control of your life and really get behind the wheel, this can also be really good for your relationships. This can really create harmonious relationships where you are in your power, you're showing up as your full self, and you're not compromising a part of yourself. A lot of it can be, if the Lilith starts to come up, which it normally does out of fear, then we can kind of be our instinctual self. And basically what this does is, I like to say that Lilith comes out when you're on camera, or Lilith comes out when you are backed up against a wall. If you're ever backed up against a wall, say in conflict, or literally backed up against a wall and it's your first instinct, what is the first thing you're going to do? That is your Lilith. Because Lilith comes out when it's been suppressed, and it's normally our fight or flight response, and it comes out when we are in fear, and it can be to do with our family. It can be triggered by our family trauma, because our family is our first port of call for our trauma and our losses and things like that. So if Lilith is going to come up, it's going to come up mainly through your family, and then if it's not resolved, it will come up in your relationships. So this is super important, and I can guarantee you that if you do resolve your Lilith and you look into it and you get really comfortable with her, then you will have fucking amazing relationships with people that you don't even know yet. Like, you will literally connect to people on such a level where you are just being your complete and utter self. So if you would like to check out your Lilith, I will include the Lilith calculator down below so you can check it out. So Lilith basically looks like a fork on your birth chart wheel. It can look various different ways, but basically it's the shadows. So if you work on your shadows, and if you do any shadow integrations or shadow work around your Lilith will most likely come up if you start shadow work. So if you'd like to check out your Lilith and you want to check it out and see what it is and what it represents in your chart, what zodiac sign it's in, as this will basically determine what it is for you, then that's down below, and then all you need to do is check out the timestamps down below. So I also wanted to say that the reason why I chose to this specific video was I have been working on my Lilith for quite some time, and it's pretty much changed my life. Only when you're ready for it to come out will it come out. Normally it will come out more when you've done shadow work, because you're allowing that feminine part of you to really be seen and not compromise on anything. That's basically when it comes out. It can be after a Kundalini rising, which is basically where the energy comes up your spine like a snake, and that's normally to do with your feminine sexual power. And by the way, when I say feminine, everyone has Lilith, okay? So you being a male or a female, it does not matter. Everyone has feminine energy. Everyone has feminine and masculine energy. So let's have a look at your Lilith, starting off with Aries. So starting off with Lilith in Aries. So this is a really big one. So Aries is ruled by Mars. It's a very sexual sign. So you guys are going to be very similar to Scorpio, because Aries is all to do with the ego. It's all to do with your identity. this being in Lilith can cause quite a lot of insecurity with your identity around your sexuality. So say if you were to be physically intimate with somebody who you're interested in, the main thing you'll be thinking about is, what do they think about my body and how am I presenting myself? You may feel like you have to change yourself, or you may feel like you have to exit the premises straight away. It's kind of like a black and white kind of situation. It's kind of like, am I going to really assert myself, or am I going to basically just run off? Mars is also a very masculine sign, so having Aries in Lilith means that you may have to work more on your masculine sign than a lot of others who have Aries in their chart. Aries is also a very strong sign. It's a sign that does not back down. So being in Lilith means that it's going to be really, really potent, and sexuality may be quite a sensitive subject for you. So because Aries is also a competitive sign, you may end up being quite aggressive or competitive, and this may cause you to maybe get fired from things, or it may cause things to rub you up the wrong way. So say if you're in a conversation with somebody, you may end up losing the connection because of your competitiveness. So one thing Aries does not compromise on is independence. So when you are in a relationship with somebody, this will come out the most in your relationships. Lilith does represent that. So with it being in Aries and it being very competitive, you want to make sure that your competitiveness does not interfere with your relationships. It does not stop you from being intimate with your connections, and it does not prevent you from having really strong arguments where your ego just won't back down. So if you feel very trapped in any sort of connection, which a lot of you guys will, if it is unhealed and you're not ready to deal with it, which is totally fine, but if it isn't ready to be worked on yet, like I say, you may feel the urge to suddenly pull out of a connection. So yours is actually going to be staying with the connection and being in your heart chakra to work with that energy and to prevent yourself from fearing intimacy and fearing that connection. So because of Lilith being represented by your parents and your family, having Lilith in Aries would represent that you may not have been able to express your anger at a very young age. You may have had to suppress it. You may not have been worthy of expressing your anger. You may have had a person in your life, say a mother or father, who had a lot of Libra in their chart, so they kind of padded out the anger, and possibly, especially if you're a woman, it may have been very stressful for you to express your anger because of you being a woman, and it can be really uncomfortable. So it may be really uncomfortable for you to express yourself in anger. It may be really uncomfortable for you to be angry. It may be that it comes out of sexual frustration, and maybe you're the sort of person that has avoided your anger through being sexual with other people. So also, because Aries is the red planet of Mars, you guys may have root chakra issues. So for you, being in your body is very, very important because you have that Martian energy. Mars is a very go-getter sign. So if you struggle to be in your body and be grounded, which you may do, you may even struggle to be grounded when it comes to intimacy. So you may not want to be naked, you may not want to take your clothes off, you may want to just be quite separate. There may be a sense of kind of childlikeness to your sexual side, so maybe you may laugh when you get physical or something like that. And really working with this, really working with being in the moment and working with your anger and working with being in your body will help immensely. So one of the most important lessons is to not let your ego get in the way, and Aries is a very powerful sign, but it can rush things too fast. So I feel like for some of you guys also is there may be too much on the surface. So for you guys, you may really struggle to express all sides of you in a relationship. So it's really important to stay the course and really work on how does this relationship feel early on in the connection. So you're not halfway through a relationship and you don't know how to set those boundaries, and therefore you stay in a relationship that you aren't happy with. So thank you so much for watching Aries in Lilith, your Lilith in Aries. I hope you have a great day, and I will speak to you soon. Much love. Bye. Hello Lilith in Taurus. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Let's get started with your Lilith sign. So for you guys, you may struggle with materialism and being in your body. Taurus rules the body. It also rules Venus. So because it rules Venus, it can come out more in relationships, especially romantic ones, or ones that ask you to be intimate and to have more commitment. So because Taurus is all about the body and the second house, looking at the house that the sign rules is actually really important, because it's to do with the second house. This is something that you either reject or you accept too much of. So for you guys, it can be that you fear lacking of materialism, or you gain too much materialism and you get quite protective or possessive over it. It can also be that finding security is your main motivation. So for you, being secure is one of the most important things. Taurus is all to do with you being in your body, being in your home and feeling stable. So if Taurus is not stable, it can freak out and it can basically leave. So one thing that's not too good with this placement is existential fears. You can get really intense about stuff because you're ruled by a fixed sign. Fixed sign Liliths are very, very intense. They are kind of all in or all out, and this will be the same for all other fixed signs as well. So for some of you guys, when I was channeling your energy as well, I heard sugar daddy. So for some of you guys, it could be that you attain a relationship for money, or you have attained a relationship because of what the other person has. So one thing for you is really important is to gain security, financial, physical, emotional security by yourself, and realizing that you have that worth within you, and realizing that you are enough and talented enough to support yourself, and that you can create that stability within yourself, and that you don't need somebody to create that for you. And with Taurus, with it being in Taurus, with it being in a fixed sign, is things can feel really overwhelming for you. When things get really intimate, it can be a lot because you are kind of all in or all out, and maybe you've also been told that you are very needy, and that's not true. You just have needs. So for you, being in a physical body can be very hard because you want to be physical, you want to be sensual, but there's a massive sense of shame around being physical. And for me as a Scorpio, I totally relate. So if you have had any of those issues, it may be when you were younger that physical touch was very much non-existent, or it was too much of it. So Lilith in Taurus, when it comes to your Lilith, it indicates to your family and your relationships at a very young age, and it gets triggered through your family at a young age, and if it's not resolved, it can result in your relationships when you get older being affected. So because yours is the sense of security, your sense of security could basically have been violated when you were younger, and it could have been really hard for you to get a sense of security. And because of Taurus being in the Lilith, you basically look at the sign and you flip it on its head, and it being imbalanced. So with it being in your Lilith, is it may have been that you're made to feel very guilty about pleasure and shame about it, and basically it was wrong to feel pleasure because Taurus is such a pleasurable sign. It's all the senses. So when it comes to being physical with somebody, or getting that attention, or getting that need of security and sensuality, it may have been very rejected at a young age. So basically it means that you can only be happy with a small amount of things, and sometimes you don't want to get more, or you don't strive for more because you feel like you're not worthy of having those material items. You may put a lot of pressure on yourself around material possessions as well. So because Taurus is to do with money, it could be that money is a massive thing for you as well. You could struggle to attain money, you may feel guilty about earning money, and you may end up with a career that bogs you down and stresses you out, but you feel like you have to stay in it out of that sense of security, but it's that false sense of security. It may be also that you focus too much on the wealth of other people, and you can get quite jealous, or you can feel like you are never going to be good enough. So because of your physicalness to do with this sign, you may have a massive fear around people taking away your physical items. You may get quite protective over them, and this is all to do with your childhood. So really looking at that is really going to show you where you didn't get your needs met. So for you guys, it's really about leaning into the shame you feel around items and being sensual, because a lot of you guys can get quite possessive over objects or partners. You fear loss. So what's really important is to look at where your sense of safety was taken away from you, and really looking at that, and if you can really work with that, that's really going to help you moving forward in your relationships. So thank you so much for watching Lilith in Taurus. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you very soon. Hello, Lilith in Gemini. So because you guys are ruled by the third house and also ruled by Mercury, your issue with your Lilith sign, well, your Lilith sign is ruled by communication and communicating with others. And Lilith points to our childhood. It points to basically our earliest karma. So you could have had struggled with your voice. You could have struggled with speaking your truth. You may have had throat issues, and as I'm talking, I'm going to burp. So that clarifies it. So with Gemini in this sign, you're very scared of saying things the wrong things at the wrong time. And basically coming across as stupid and fearing that people will think you're very stupid and all these things that aren't true. So the positive with this Gemini placement is you guys are avid learners. You are somebody who can take in a lot of information, and you're somebody who can regurgitate it as well. So tests and things like that may have been very easy for you. When it comes to actually communicating with others, you may struggle to be there physically and actually be in your body and be very present. So for you guys, because Lilith is the sign of, can be quite reckless, and it can be the sign of feeling quite, it's just a very intense sign. It comes out when we are fearing the worst. So for you guys, if you are put up against a lot of pressure, say in a meeting, you know, a date maybe, or you're talking to somebody and you're just getting really nervous, you may say the wrong thing, or you may be scared that you're going to say the wrong thing. Also, you may voice your opinion openly and basically won't care about what other people think. So the alternative with Gemini is, if it's not the fact that you struggle with communication, it can be you're so good at it that you tend to lie to get yourself out of situations, or you're very good at lying when it comes to being connected to people. So when it comes to relationships or starting a relationship, or when it comes to being in a situation where you feel a lot of fear, you may end up doing a lot of lying and end up kind of in a really uncomfortable situation. You could also play the devil's advocate, where you are somebody in between situations where you feel like you can't actually speak your truth. So it can be either or, depending on your birth chart as well, and also where it's placed in your birth chart. So with your Lilith, have a look and see what house it's also in your birth chart from when you were born, and that will also indicate what part of your chart it is really going to affect. So for you guys, you can also feel very lonely. You can tend to overanalyze your emotions and feel like nobody understands you, because this can be very, very hard for you at times. So this is very similar to Leo, where you guys can basically get deeply hurt if you aren't paid attention to, because Gemini is that sense of communication. If you don't get the communication that you have been needing or wanting, then you guys may struggle to feel comfortable, or you may feel just extremely rejected. So at an early age, you may have struggled to express your feelings and stand up for yourself. So when you're old, now that you're getting older, or when you get older and when you have committed relationships, it's really important to be able to speak your truth and express yourself in a way that's really authentic to you, that you don't have to kind of put on this mask, or you have to fake basically who you are, or lie about who you are to fit in. It could also mean that you have had very intense secrets, and you have had to basically felt like you're living two lives. You're living a double life, maybe a life when you were younger and now a life when you're older, because you haven't fully integrated that twin energy of both the twins of the Gemini. Gemini is kind of a little bit cocky, so you guys can tend to have quite dark humor, or you say things that can affect people on quite a deep level. So for you guys, it's really important to be very truthful with who you are, and to learn to integrate your identity and realize that that's such an important part of who you are, and that you don't have to fake it till you make it. You can be your authentic self with people and really share your ideas. So one thing to also really heal the Black Moon Lilith is basically to do anything to do with communication. So if you want to write in your diary, you want to be a writer, you want to be a journalist, you want to be a blogger, could even be something to do with communication, voice actor, something like that. Working with your voice and working with your truth is incredibly important. And I feel like for some of you guys, as I'm talking, I feel like some of you guys might be the sort of people that kind of like write tweets and then don't think about them before you post them, or you do like Instagram posts that are really random, that kind of shake things up. So for you, it's really taking responsibility for what you're doing, and that it can really affect people. So realizing that you may have to think about things twice before you post them or say them. So because this is also ruled, and Lilith is to do with your relationships and how you interact with people, healing your Black Moon Lilith can involve doing shadow work. So if you guys are ever interested in doing shadow work, this is something that will really help heal the Black Moon Lilith, and also realizing that it takes time and it takes layers upon layers, and communication is definitely key for you guys. So working with that is going to be your best friend. So thank you so much, Lilith in Gemini. I hope you have a great day, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye. Hello, Lilith in Cancer. So for you guys, because your Lilith is ruled by your sexual energy and your expression and things like that, it can really come around in your early childhood. So for you guys, because it's ruled by Cancer, you could have really lacked a lot of nurturing. Family could have been a really intense place for you. It could have been a place of kind of loneliness and anxiety and abandonment. So when you make peace with Lilith, it becomes your source of power. So to do with it in Cancer means that if you can work with nurturing yourself and being the nurturer that you wish you had or wish you were, then being that for yourself is going to really help you. Basically babying that side of you is super important. So for you guys, because Cancer is ruled by the 4th house of family, it's a very emotional sign. It's also to do with your foundations, children, women, your femininity. You may struggle to separate yourself from your family, and therefore it may really hinder your relationships. And it may mean that relationships have been broken up because of this. So for you guys, it's to do with you being emotionally independent. So once you actually grasp this, at whatever age, then you will become so powerful in your relationships. You will feel so much like a goddess. It's going to be amazing. So with having Cancer in your Lilith sign, like I say, Lilith is that suppressed sexuality. So you could have had a lot of abuse when you were younger in your household, and that could in turn create a lot of anxiety for you. So being around people that are aggressive can be really uncomfortable for you. So working with your inner power and becoming really comfortable with conflict and making yourself and helping yourself to feel safe is super important. Security, one of the most important things. So because of your life at home being quite abusive, you may, like I said, have struggled with anxiety. So it could come to the form where you may not want a family because you may struggle to connect to them, and it may feel like you can't come together with people because of relationship issues with other people's families as well. Maybe you don't want to get close to your partner's family, or maybe you struggle to come close with your own sense of security around people who remind you of your family members in relationships. So basically, behind closed doors, your family was very different. It was really hard for you to get your needs met, and it was really hard for you to feel safe and nurtured. So you may feel closed off in relationships because of this. So like I say, because this is ruled by the mother, you may have had a really uncomfortable relationship with your mother. She could have been lacking in nurturing, or she could have been super overly protective to the point where your identity really struggled, and you may have trouble actually coming away from this relationship as you get older. So it may be that you have to put down very strong boundaries with a mother figure, or actually come away from them completely so you can form your own identity. So to really heal this as well is to become emotionally stable with yourself and emotionally balanced. So working with your emotions is super important. This will come up in your relationships, like I say, or it can come up when you're on camera, or it can come up when you are backed up against a wall. Those are the things that I really say that Lilith comes out. It will come out in your relationships, and because you are connected to the mother, family may actually be one of the most triggering things for you. And it may be that you form your own family and create that nurturing side of you, but it may not come out until you actually create your own family yourself, whether that be through a tribe, it could be through your romantic partnerships. But for you, really looking after your emotions and really almost babying them is super important. So thank you so much, Lilith in Cancer. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Hello, Lilith in Leo. So let's get started with your reading, with your section, your section of the video. So for you guys, because you're ruled by the 5th house, also you look at where Lilith is in your birth chart, see what house it actually is in. But Lilith in Leo is the same as Lilith being in your 5th house. So Lilith in the 5th house, because it's Leo and the 5th house, it's ruled by your romance, your love, your creativity, your sexuality, self-expression, drama, things like that. So knowing this, for you guys, it can be really hard for you to be seen. It can be really hard for you to express yourself, and it can be really hard for you to express your childlike joy. You could have come from a family that was very restrictive, or come from a family that didn't let you to express your sexuality or your expressive side. So with Lilith being in Leo, Leo is the side of you that is to be seen. So Leo is the sign that is on stage. It likes to have the attention. So flip this on its head. You are scared of attention. You want the attention, but you're really scared of the attention. You want people to look at you, but you don't want people to look at you. So this can be really, really potent with Lilith in Leo. So for you guys, working with your creativity and working with your sexuality is super, super important, because you're also a fixed sign. So it can be really intense for you having this in your Lilith, because it can really, really come up in an intense way. It can actually really freak you out, because it's all or nothing with fixed signs. So when Leo is imbalanced, it can basically mean that you struggle to show your full self in connections, especially with your family. You struggle to be your full creative self. You struggle to really let people see you and see your full you and see you as you really, really are, because you're scared of that judgment. So it can also mean, because of Leo being about that sense of ego and self-expression, it can also mean that you lack self-confidence. It can mean that you struggle to show up and you struggle to be seen. You may struggle to be on stage. You may struggle to be on camera. You may really like being on camera, or you maybe hate being on camera. You may love being on stage, or you may hate being on stage. You could want to be a singer, but you're also scared of being a singer. You want to be a singer, but you're scared of being seen. This is pretty much Lilith in Leo. So for you guys, what's really good to work with Lilith in Leo is to also work with your shadow side. So I recommend this for every sign anyway with Lilith, because it's to do with this shadow self. So if you work with your shadow side and you do shadow work on this, it can really, really help. Working with your masculine side, especially because Lilith in Leo is a very masculine sign. Leo is very masculine. Working with your masculine side is very, very important. This is to do with you expressing your sexuality and showing up for yourself, and really being conscious of how much effort you're putting into everyday life, and making sure that you are putting your boundaries down when it comes to making sure you're getting your needs met. So because of Leo being such an expansive sign, you guys may underestimate yourself, and you also maybe have been very insecure as a child. You may have been very shy and have not wanted to really speak out or speak your truth. So for you guys, you can be very attractive to the opposite sex. You're somebody who can get a lot of attention, wanted or unwanted. So as an example, Leo, Marilyn Monroe had her Lilith in Leo. And it's funny because I'm wearing red lipstick. I never wear red lipstick. It's very, very Marilyn Monroe. And she was very much a very charismatic sign, but she got a lot of negative attention. You know, she was kind of this sexual appealing woman who was very sexualized. And for you guys, it's really important to be seen, to show yourself up as being seen. And I feel like it's really, really healing for you guys to be in places in your life where you can be seen and show up as being seen. And this is going to really help you and heal your masculine side and really get your needs met in relationships. So also it can be to do with you getting attention. So say if you're not getting attention from somebody that you really want attention from, it can be very triggering for you. So learning to get the attention for yourself and working on getting attention from other areas of your life rather than just relationships is going to be so healing for you. Anything to do with creativity is going to be amazing. So the last thing for you guys is you guys can be very obsessed with status. It's kind of like if you're not seen and you're not acknowledged, you'd rather be dead, pretty much, because it feels so detrimental to you. So really working on your own self-worth and becoming confident with showing up for yourself and showing people who you really are is super important. And when you actually get to the point where you can be fully seen and not be scared of being seen in any way, it can be emotionally, physically, especially with your body, or it can be to do, especially, I feel like it connects to your Venus sign, very much to do with your Venus sign. So have a look and see how it connects to that Venus sign too. And yeah, so that is your sign. I hope you have a great day. I hope that resonates, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Hello Lilith in Virgo. So for you guys, you are very, very logical. So with Lilith in Virgo, you just have to look really at the sign that Lilith is in. So you can look also at the house that it rules as well. So check the house that it's in, and that will really tell you about how it's affected your childhood and possibly your relationships in the future, and how it's really affected you and your personality. So with it ruling the 6th house, it's very much to do with the health. It's very much to do with health and body. So you may be or have been obsessed with bodies and being physical, being a physical being, and that may have been quite a big insecurity for you. You may have had a lot of body insecurity and maybe even struggled with body insecurity. You may have struggled with food insecurities and struggling to really be comfortable in your own skin. So because of Virgo being a very logical sign, it can be really hard for you to express yourself, and it can mean that you end up being quite sensitive. And Virgos can tend to struggle to express their emotional side because they are very logical. They're somebody who doesn't like to be seen as vulnerable, and it can be quite a sensitive subject for you to dive into your emotions. Because you are the sign that is to do with service, you guys have very high expectations for yourself, and you can tend to be too overly perfectionistic about who you are, and it can also be really uncomfortable for you to be in relationships because you want to live up to other people's expectations. It can be that you tread on eggshells, or you tend to people please because you're scared of how it will affect others. So this placement can also indicate strict parents. It can indicate that you came from a household that was very controlling, and it may have been through strong religion, it could have been through culture. It can also be that there wasn't really a sense of being able to express your emotions as well. So for you guys, because Virgo is the Virgin, you're always searching for clarity, reliability and rest. And because you're somebody who can be a workaholic, this can be a very workaholic sign, it can be really hard for you to rest. And when it comes to relationships, you may tend to overwork yourself to avoid those emotions. So you can also be quite critical and have very strong opinions, and also it can indicate that you were bullied as a child because of your intellectual nature, because you are very intelligent, and you are very intelligent, and you guys are Mercury ruled, so you would have had a brain that did not stop thinking. So you may have been quite insecure about how you actually express yourself as well. I felt like you guys struggled to show up for yourself, show people who you really were, out of insecurity of being ashamed or shameful about being intelligent, kind of like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, like Sheldon syndrome. So for you guys, you struggle to be out of control. Virgo, because it's such a perfectionistic sign, you can tend to see things in black and white, very similar to if it was in a fixed sign. So for you guys, it's really important to chill in the grey zone basically, and be okay with not always knowing how to fix or change things, which can be quite scary for you. Lilith isn't an easy sign to work with, but like I say to all the other signs, shadow work is an amazing tool. And also looking at where Virgo in Lilith is in your birth chart, what house it's in, can really indicate you and your childhood. And when we look at our childhood and we look at Lilith and we see how it connects, it can be really, really healing and very validating. So Virgo can also be very critical, and for you guys, it can make you obsessed with what's right and what's wrong. It can make you also think that, you know, if something's a little bit off, it can really kind of put you off, especially when it comes to dating and being in relationships. You can be quite overly critical or very picky about certain people, and this can be a very uncomfortable sign to be in with Lilith, because Lilith doesn't like to be picky. It's very much to do with very intense expression and being very raunchy and having a lot of like playful fun, and Virgo doesn't like to play. Virgo's serious. So for you guys, you could have come from a very strict family that only accepted one way of living, and this could have caused you to just feel very insecure and realize that you can't express who you are, and really feared that. So for you guys, you can be in this sense of being an ice queen, where you see things as very practical and you struggle to be in your emotions and you don't fall for tricks. Like, it can be really hard for you to relax when it comes to love and relationships. So for you guys, it's really important to address sexuality and realize that it's okay to be playful and have fun. So also the last thing that I was thinking for with Lilith in Virgo is you guys may have stomach issues. I got very bloated when I did your sign, so maybe you guys have had stomach issues. And a lot of signs in Virgo, say your sun, moon, rising, can also struggle with stomach issues as well, because it's to do with your nervous system. So it's really important to make sure your nervous system is very calm. And this can also cause a lot of stress for your body, like your stomach may get really bloated when you're stressed out. So working with things like vitamins, probiotics can really help you with your stomach and to calm that nervous system down, girl. So to really heal this side of you, it's really important to let people see your vulnerable side, to realize that it's okay to be in your feminine energy, and it's okay to really love yourself, and you don't always have to be of service to others. It's okay for you to have your own voice and to have your own needs, but also to really work with being vulnerable and being intimate with your emotions, very similar to Scorpio energy. So you may have attracted Lilith in Scorpio in other people as well. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and like I say, if you want to check out more of your Lilith, then definitely look at your birth chart and look at the house that Lilith is in, and that will also indicate your Lilith and what it really is connected to in your family as well, and how it really affected your childhood. So have a great day and get going with work on your Lilith. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Hello, Lilith in Libra, Libra and Lilith. So this is your astrology. So for you guys, this is quite a tough one. So because Lilith is to do with your feminine power and suppressing it, Libra is a very feminine sign. It's to do with relationships, it's ruled by the 7th house, it's to do with others, it's to do with your marriage, your contracts, how you feel about connections. And basically what we do to work with Lilith, to really work with it, is to work with your shadow side, to work and do shadow work on your Lilith sign can really help. So this is also really good for if you really get drawn to do any work on your Lilith and it pops up for you in therapy or anything like that. It's really good to work through, and especially with Lilith in Libra, it's really important to work with you and your femininity and expressing your feminine side without being bitchy, basically. Because Lilith in Libra when it's flipped on its head, when you look at the sign of Libra and you flip it upside down and it's imbalanced, it can be very bitchy, it can be very intense, very possessive, it can be quite seductive but not in a good way. It can be very sarcastic, and you can have a tendency to avoid intimacy because of this, because you want to have the upper hand with Libra, especially because it's ruled by an air sign. So it can also mean that you're fascinated by relationships, but you can become unsuccessful with relationships. It can also mean that when it comes to relationships, that it can be really hard for you to have balance there. So if it comes to especially family, because Lilith indicates your childhood as well. So you can see where Lilith really came up in your childhood. So say if you do have Lilith in your Libra, it could have meant that there was a lot of things that were shoved under the rug in your family. It could have meant that there was a lack of boundaries, and the feminine side of your family, say the mother figure, really struggled to express her needs. And then in turn you struggle to express your needs, and it can come out as either really intense, or it can be that you just shove your needs under the rug and then you become very passive aggressive. So for you guys, you struggle to trust easily, and therefore it can be really hard for you to maintain relationships. You also pay a lot of attention from what others want from you, and you define yourself as the function of your relationship. So you basically wait for people to show you who you are instead of actually forming your own identity around your relationships. Also, what's really interesting is if you have Lilith in Libra, you could have witnessed a lot of arguments when you were younger. You could have witnessed a lot of conflict, and as an adult you probably dislike conflict, you probably dislike a lot of noise and a lot of intensity in the family home. And also with Libra is it doesn't like conflict. So whenever it comes to conflict in your life, you can or could have avoided it. So it's really important for you with your Lilith sign to actually be in the conflict, be there and be very present, and to really work with what's being shown in front of you. Because with Libra being about the other, what happens in your connections can really be intensely reflected back to you, and it can almost feel like offensive to you. It can be that you put up a guard or you get very highly defensive about what people say, even if it has nothing to do with you. So for you, because of your Lilith in Libra, you want to be close to people, but you're also really scared of it. Very similar to Leo. Leos like to be seen, but they're also scared of it. It's a very contradicting sign. That's why Lilith is such an important sign to look at, such an important placement, because when you grab hold of it, you really grab life by the balls, like you really get your power back. So looking at Lilith is looking at Libra and Lilith is basically like looking at the Mean Girls film, and how women tend to act if their femininity is imbalanced. So it can be, like I say, very bitchy or avoiding conflict. And when you avoid conflict, it actually makes more conflict. So for you guys, it can also mean that you struggle to have commitment. So you may settle down later on in life. So one of the most important lessons for Lilith in Libra, Lilith in Libra, is to really accept yourself for who you are, and to really love yourself, and to not worry about what other people think of you. Libra can be very, very scared of what other people think of them because of that mirror. So it's really important to validate yourself no matter what people say or do, and that is when Libra becomes very, very empowered. You crave to be accepted and appreciated for who you are, and this placement indicates a wound related to being unlovable. So you could wait for people to show you love but never actually get it because you're constantly feeling that within you. It's not actually to do with what's happening outside of you. Basically, it's learning to not prove yourself to other people. That's a really big thing, is to realize that you are lovable, whatever, you're perfect, whatever, and is not to wait for people to validate you. Also with this sign is to not judge yourself. I feel like Libra is a very judgmental sign. It's a very perfectionistic sign around other people. So you can tend to be quite perfectionistic about other people and how they should and shouldn't behave. So it's really important to look at yourself, which sometimes is not comfortable, but it's really important to be independent with your thinking and to not wait for other people to validate you, because if you're waiting for that, you're going to constantly be disappointed. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Check out your Lilith in the house in your birth chart, see where that is and what it indicates for you. And yeah, have a great day and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Hello, Lilith in Scorpio. So you guys are a fun one. So I am a Scorpio sun, so I really relate to Scorpio Lilith. I understand it quite well. It's very uncomfortable, and for a lot of you guys, with wherever Lilith is in your chart, it's uncomfortable. So like I said, for the other signs, looking at where Lilith is in a certain house in your birth chart will indicate a lot for you guys. It also represents your childhood and how you express yourself in relationships growing up now. And also it indicates that shadow work will be really good for you, because Lilith is to do with the shadow, especially with Scorpio. Scorpio is a very shadowy sign and it's very hidden. Doing shadow work around your Lilith is really going to help. So if any time you're struggling to really express yourself, being intimate, then this is a really good time for you to work on it. So Scorpio is to do with intimacy. Intimacy is not just sexual, it is physical and it is emotional. So for you guys, you may struggle to be emotionally and physically intimate and being vulnerable. You may, when you get close to a connection, you want it really bad, and then you push it away because it's too much. Intimacy is going to be a really big deal for you guys. It's going to be the main thing for you guys. It's like you want intimacy, but you don't want intimacy. That's pretty much Lilith. It's like she wants it, but she don't want it. Like she's scared of it. She wants it, but she's scared of it, basically. So for you guys, it is so important for you to work on intimacy. And this is about accepting your intimacy towards yourself and realizing that you are lovable no matter what. And being physical in a relationship is very important. And you may have dealt with porn addiction. You may have dealt with addictions to do with being physical. You may want to be more physical far apart. You may have had relationships that are very long distance. You may have had connections that are just online because there's a sense of safety behind a computer. So for you guys, it's really important to work with intimacy and to realize that your sexual organs are more than just sexual organs. Like they are so powerful, and not to overuse them or underuse them. And what I mean by this is basically not to underestimate your sexual power and to become much more vulnerable with being a sexual person and expressing your sexual side. This is key to this connection in Lilith. So basically you could also really be scared of control, like you want the control, and when you're not in control you get really scared of your life, you really freak out, and it's a really big deal for you. There is a lot of tension in your mind and it's hidden from the external world, so you could keep it very private. And also with Scorpio being in your Lilith, it could indicate that your childhood was very private, your sexual side was very shamed. And it also can depend on your gender as well, whether being male or a female. This can come around differently. It can be that you guys, if you're a woman, you can become too masculine, or if you are a male, you struggle with your feminine side. So if you have issues when you were younger with sexuality, identity, anything to do with your identity and your sexuality, this could have also manifested in the same gender of the person that you were around. So say if you are a male, you could have struggled with a connection with your father figure, and if you are a female, you struggle with the connection with your mother figure, and you looked up to that person but also felt a lot of shame because of the distance between you both. And also when you tried to get that close connection, you were rejected because of that intimacy and the Lilith struggle. You know, Lilith normally comes out with our parents because it's to do with our first port of call with our karma. So with Lilith, because it's a very shadowy sign, Lilith in Scorpio forces you to basically face your shadow, and it will come up and down within your life in different points. So this sign can help you find your power, and especially in Scorpio, it's not easy, but it's 100% doable. So for you guys, because control is so important to you, being helpless and being at mercy to somebody is like one of your worst nightmares. You'd rather die, pretty much. So also with this sign, Lilith can be assessed with safety, so you can tend to hold on to things longer than what you need to. So it can be relationships, it can be friendships, it can be staying in a home or a certain place, just to get that sense of control. So for you guys, because Scorpio is such an intense sign, it can really represent your raw and primal self, and because your sexual side and your intimate side was very shamed when you were younger. It could have been that you came from a very religious family, or a family that was not intimate at all, or not expressive of their emotions. Your raw sexual side could be very, very suppressed. So you could have an extremely high or extremely low sex drive. So for you guys, if working on this, when you do, or if you do, your sex drive may go up and down. And this is actually a really good thing. If your sex drive actually goes down to the point where you can really control it naturally, that is when you start to become much more in control of your life. And also, like I say, porn addiction is a very normal thing for Scorpios in this sign. So for you guys, really working on becoming intimate with somebody in the long term is super important. So because of you having Lilith in Scorpio, you're always transforming. Scorpio, in a lot of signs, like sun sign, like myself, transformation can be also very scary, but also so needed. It's like you want transformation, but you're also extremely scared of it. So for you guys, because of that sense of control, you can try to change others where actually you need to change yourself. You can focus on changing others and getting others to be a certain way, but actually it's about you looking into yourself. One thing to learn is also that change is not a threatening thing, and realizing to not feel so threatened when change comes along, to really embrace it. So for you guys, it's quite intense. When you really, really like someone, you can basically become obsessed with them. And then if they don't give you the love that you want, or they don't give you what you want, you can basically passionately hate them. And it can be extremely destructive for you for relationships. So learn to balance and be at balance with this is super important. So for you guys, it can also be an indicator of trust and betrayal when you were younger, and also you could have had a lot of trauma related to sexual experiences as well. So you could be carrying this on from childhood to adulthood. So this is super important to look at. Even though it's scary, it's probably one of the most important things to look at for your chart, and could also explain a lot as well with your relationships. So for you guys, looking at things like the occult, religion, or taboo topics can be really, really exciting for you, but it's really important to have balance there and not to look into them to the point where it really stresses you out. So have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Hello, Lilith in Sagittarius. So for you guys, it's really important, like I mentioned to all the other signs, to look into shadow work when it comes to your Lilith sign. This can be really important and can really help the process in changing your life and getting the ball rolling when it comes to your Lilith. So Lilith for you is also to look into the house that it is in. So look into your house and look into shadow work, making sure I include those both. It's late at night that I'm filming this and I'm getting very tired. Okay, so for you guys, basically with Lilith it's putting Lilith on its head, it's flipping it on its head, it's becoming imbalanced. So Sagittarius, when it's imbalanced, is basically like, I want to move, but I don't want to move. I want to get out there, but I don't want to get out there. And it's about you basically being adventurous but feeling very restricted. So you could have felt very restricted when you were younger. You could have wanted a lot of freedom, but freedom was basically taken away from you. So for you guys, you basically have the desire to understand others and yourself at a very deep level. So astrology and things like that could be a really important topic for you guys. And it can also be a topic for you to really help and heal others, to help them feel more understood. So for you guys, if you avoid introspection and being introspective with yourself, life basically forces you to be introspective, because Sagittarius is kind of like looking at things from the bigger picture, looking at things from afar. You can become quite obsessive with looking at things that are far away rather than actually what's close to you and what's inward. So when you were younger, Lilith basically represents your childhood. It represents your trauma, and your family could really, really trigger your karma to do with your Lilith. So for you guys, you could have come from a family that was very restrictive. You could have come from a family that basically forced you to be a certain way and tried to control you in a certain way as well. There may have been somebody in your life that basically had a strong idea of who you should be, very domineering, very controlling, and somebody also could have been very religious in your family, or you could have come from a very religious family. Because the 9th house, because Sagittarius is from the 9th house, it's ruled by religion and travel. That's basically the main thing that Lilith is really working on for you. And because it's to do with relationships, you could also feel very trapped in relationships if you're not actually looking at what it is at face value. So you guys, like I said, you could have really struggled with freedom. You could have felt very controlled when you were younger. So freedom is very, very important to you, and you can't stand it when someone holds you back. Like for you, then commitment will be quite a struggle. So you may be kind of connected to people that are from a different country, but it may be the fact that you connect to people that are long distance, and that can really affect you in your intimacy. You want to be with somebody who's physically there with you, who's physically in your energy and with you physically, and making sure that you don't avoid physical intimacy by being with someone who is long distance. So because you come from, or have come from, a very restrictive family, you could grow up in relationships where they basically define who you are and try to control who you are. So it could be that you want to be controlled, but you also don't want to be controlled. So this sense of kind of push and pull, it could be a big struggle with you in your relationships. This is something that you will tend to work with when it comes to being in connections with people, and realizing that you have to get the freedom within yourself inwardly to really have that sense of freedom emotionally in connections. So for you guys, you could have feared being different and feared kind of thinking different or being different. So for you guys, having your own personal truth and embracing it is very, very important. So being different is perfectly okay. So for you guys, it's really important to avoid being in things like that have a very strong religious aspect, or avoid things that have cult way of living. So anything to do with cult mentality, girl, avoid it like the plague. So for you guys, the one thing to really work with is diplomacy. You may just say things that are on your mind and not even really think about it. Kind of a bit like Chandler from Friends, where he has that sarcastic humour, but it can be quite offensive sometimes. So for you guys, it's really working on diplomacy. And also when it comes to being physical and being sexual, you may tend to overdo it. When it comes to being in a different country, you may tend to have more risks, you may tend to take more risks. So being safe and careful is really, really important, and to really look inward as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Hello, Lilith in Capricorn. So for you guys, what's really important is what I say for all the other signs, is to look at where your Lilith is in whatever house it's in your birth chart. This will give you an idea on anything to do with childhood, to do with how you grew up and your trauma, and it will really indicate how it's going to affect you in your life going forward. Also, what I like to say is Lilith is very shadowy. So working with your shadow self is super important. Doing shadow work and anything to do with shadow work, super important, because it can really be destructive if it's not taken care of, and it can be a very kind of raw energy, so it can kind of control relationships where you don't want it to control your relationships. So that's also very important to look at. So because Capricorn is ruled by the 10th house, it's to do with structure, it's ruled by Saturn. You guys definitely have struggles with structure, hierarchy and rules. People with this placement rebel against order, and you don't like things too structural. You like things with freedom and a little bit of mess. Basically, growing up is one of your most important life lessons. The fact that the 10th house in Capricorn is opposite your 4th house in your home can indicate that having family life could have been quite difficult, very similar to Lilith in Cancer. So because Capricorn is quite a rigid, intense energy, you may give off this energy unintentionally to kind of gain a sense of control. So you may kind of give off this don't really care attitude, or kind of a rigid and unemotional energy. So because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, hard work is very familiar to you. As you get older, work may be very difficult for you. So doing a job that's very creative can actually be really, really quite hard for you, especially if you have had quite a hard childhood. But it can be extremely liberating because you're no longer under the rule of somebody else. So because Capricorn is very intense, very much like Virgo, it can be very structured, like it can put itself in boxes. So for you guys, you can be quite scared of actually having fun. So people with Leo Lilith, or having Leo in their chart can be quite freaky to you, can be quite scary, because you try to get that control by being rigid and having structure, but also you're scared of structure, so it can be quite complicated. So for you guys, it's really important to recognize hard work is very, very important, but to have balance, to have work-life balance, to have joy, and to also be serious at times, and to realize that that's okay. It's okay to dive into those seriousness, to dive into your seriousness, and to also it's okay to have structure. So people with Capricorn placements, it can be your sun, rising and moon as well, can be very similar. So you guys, when also I come across in my readings as well with people with Capricorn placements, is you guys have had most likely a lot of struggles when you were younger. You were kind of either the eldest child, or you were the person that always took on responsibility and nobody else helped you with those responsibilities. So you took on a lot of burdens, hence why you kind of rebel against those hardships as you get older. You don't want those rules, you want to have more freedom. So for you guys, learning to let go is a really important lesson, and having a balance between independence and acknowledging vulnerability is super, super important. So having conversations with your partner about this can be really, really important. Realizing where you get your independence and where you get your intimacy can be really important, and realizing that it's okay to be vulnerable, but it's also okay to have independence too, and having that connection between the two is very important, and having that seen in the relationship. So for you guys, you can struggle to show your vulnerable side to people, and therefore this manifests for you as trusting the wrong person. So what's really good for you is to work on your insecure attachment styles in your relationships. So for you guys, you can also be very scared of control or have too much control, and basically it means that you can become stubborn and you do everything to get what you want. So it's really important to take one thing at a time, and to realize that you can have help, and to realize that you don't have to do it all by yourself. So for you guys, because it's ruled by an earth sign, you guys struggle to, you worry about how you're perceived by other people. And because Capricorn is very much ruled by status and masculinity and fathers and experts, it's really important to realize that you are perfect the way you are, and all your knowledge is very much needed. And for you guys, it can be, you struggle to be anxious to make it in the world. Like, you want to make it, but you're scared of that failure. So don't be afraid of failure. It's okay to try different things and be experimentative. I can't say that word. To basically really embrace the 5th house of Leo, and to really work with that, and to come into play with that, and to realize that it's okay to, like I say, have work and fun balance, basically. So for you guys, it's also really important to not calculate sexuality. Sexuality is a natural, very expressive part of you, and to try to control that side of you can make you feel very uncomfortable. You're not meant to feel stressed out in your relationships. You're not meant to feel like your sex life is a sense of control. And for you guys, you may have used or subconsciously used other people to get what you want in sex. So say you wanted to have children, but you didn't really want to be with that person, but you still needed children. Maybe you had children with somebody you didn't even really like that much, because you need to try and get that sense of control. Or maybe you struggled or have struggled to have children, so you may have tried to control that in that way. So it's really important to let go and realize that if children or sexuality is going to enter your life, you've got to have it come in the most natural way. There is no point in forcing it. And Saturn, if anything that I've learned from Saturn, is to take your friggin' time. Like, Saturn basically does not cut corners. So if any time you cut a corner in a relationship where you're trying to kind of get somewhere fast or avoid responsibility, it's going to basically fall to shit. So it's really, really important for you to embrace your emotions and to communicate your needs, especially in sexuality, and not be afraid of sexuality. So that is your reading, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this part of your Lilith, and I really hope that made sense to you. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Hello, Lilith in Aquarius. So for you guys, first of all, I want to say that I said this for every sign, is to look at where your Lilith is in your chart and what house it rules. This can also indicate your childhood. This can indicate how your childhood was and how it has come to play now. So your Lilith is very, very connected to your childhood, and because of this, your childhood is connected to your relationships. So if your relationship to your childhood was very rocky and uncomfortable, it will come out in your relationships. Another thing also, because Lilith is to do with the shadow side, you want to look at your shadow self and not be scared of it, because Lilith is a very shadowy energy. A lot of the time we don't want to look at our shadows, so it's very hidden. and it only comes out when she wants to come out, when she's scared, when she needs to just, you know, get her claws out, get her little stingers out. So it's really important to do shadow work, to really work on this side of your Lilith. And yeah, so let's jump in. So with Aquarius being in your Lilith sign, with Aquarius being in your Lilith, you basically look at the opposite of what that sign means. When this sign is out of balance, what does it represent and how does it come into your relationship? So for you guys, you want to have a shit ton of independence in your relationships. Aquariuses are very connected to family. So you may be overly obsessed with your family or be with your family a little bit too much. It may be that you wait on your family to give you validation, and your sexuality is very tied to how your family see you. So maybe when you get into a relationship, you want to get your family's validation before you get into that relationship. It may be that you want to have that independence, but you're also scared of the independence. With Lilith, it can be, you know, the opposite of that. It can be you want it, but you're scared of it. That's pretty much what Lilith represents. So for you guys, because you want independence, you also really hate being restricted. So when you were younger, you could have felt very restricted and not really felt very loved or very lovable. So for you guys, because Aquarius is a very independent sign, you could have felt very outside in the world. Aquarius in any part of your chart can also indicate this as well. So for you guys, commitment is very important. So with relationships, this is super important. Once you get this down, your relationships are going to be amazing. For you guys, you like independence. So it's really, really important to look at your relationships and realize when you need to come together rather than be too independent. It is not healthy to be too independent. So for you guys, like I say, you could have felt very restricted when you were younger, or you could have felt very different. You could have felt very different. You could have felt like an outsider. For you guys, emotions are on the back burner, and it could be really hard for you to establish intimacy in relationships. Very similar to Scorpio in Lilith. It can be similar to all the other fixed signs as well. So if you are say you are a fixed sign, cardinal or mutable, looking at the other cardinal, mutable or fixed signs is very similar. You could also attract people who also have a fixed sign Lilith as well. And for you guys, when you attract somebody who also has this, but also once you really work on your Lilith sign and you get a hold of it and you become okay with intimacy and okay with vulnerability in relationships, girl, you've made it. That means you're basically on the path to really fucking healing your relationships. Intimacy is very important to you. It's fucking terrifying, but it's also really important. You need to get used to being intimate with other people, being okay with expressing yourself, but also being physically intimate, being okay with merging with another person and realizing that it's not yucky and it's not gross. It is a beautiful thing, and it's actually really amazing to be physically intimate with somebody. And because Lilith is to do with sex, this could really come about when you want to be intimate with people. You might have really avoided physical intimacy when you were younger as well. So for you guys, you could have actually dealt with adoption, or you could have dealt with just feeling very like the odd one out. You may have had a past life with adoption. You may have been a foster child, or you may have been in an orphanage. You also basically feel like your soul is locked up, like you feel very, very different, and that's actually a really beautiful thing. But actually really embracing this can be quite difficult. For you guys, you can actually be very promiscuous. It's very traditional. It's like a very traditional attachment to sex, but it can also mean that you don't like to be in a traditional relationship. Like, you like the sex, you like how kind of creative it can be, kind of like seductive and sultry and promiscuous, but you do definitely struggle with being committed. Like, commitment issues could be a really big deal for you guys. You could have a distant attachment style. You could have a fearful attachment style, or an anxious attachment style, a detached attachment style. That's what I was thinking of. So for you guys, your partner has to make you feel free. So with commitment, it's really important that you are coming together with somebody who makes you feel free and makes you feel like you have your freedom. So for you guys, the most important thing is to be able to express your eccentric nature and not feel judged by other people, and to really express your authentic self. One of the most important things, because Aquarius is a very independent sign, it's very expressive, it's very different. That is the main element of what you're learning with this placement. And because Lilith is such an intense sign, it's okay for you to express your individuality, especially when it comes to being sexual with another person. So for you guys, the last thing is also, when you were a child, you could have basically needed to prove to people about who you were. So this could be a form of having to prove yourself in relationships as well. So really coming away from this and really being able to be okay with being different and expressive and having a different life is such a beautiful thing for you guys. So that is Aquarius in Lilith. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Hello Lilith in Pisces. So today we're going to be looking at your Lilith in Pisces and we're seeing what it means for you. So what I've said for the other signs is that for you guys it's really important for you to work on your shadow side, on your shadow self, and this is including shadow work, which a lot of people don't like doing, including myself being a Scorpio. We don't like doing it because it's very uncomfortable, but working on your shadow side of yourself can be extremely nurturing, extremely important. And because it's your shadow side, it can be very hidden. So doing therapy and shadow work can be very nurturing for bringing out your Lilith, and Lilith can really change your friggin' life. Like I say, it can really get you connected to your personal power and can really change your relationships, and also just bring in some really powerful relationships as well. So also what's really important is to look at where Lilith is in your birth chart. For a lot of astrology videos they will say this because it depends on where the asteroid is in your birth chart. Looking at what house it's in can really indicate how it affects you in your life, and it can also indicate your childhood. Lilith is definitely a sign that gets really triggered by family, and it can be really triggered in your relationships. So basically is to look at intimacy, where intimacy is related to you in your life, whether it be family, friendships, relationships, where it comes about, and really realizing that when we work with this, we will no longer attract the same type of relationships, same sort of person, different body. So let's get started with your video. Let's see Lilith in Pisces. So for you guys, because you are the sign of Pisces, when it's imbalanced, it can be very floaty. Pisces is all about this fantasy, this kind of element of illusion. It's ruled by the 12th house. It's to do with dreams. It can be to do with karma, solitude, endings, the afterlife, all that stuff. So for you guys, you want to look at, where am I avoiding intimacy? And it can also be that you come into relationships in a very kind of overly romantic way, or you come into relationships where you tend to focus too much on the fantasy version of that person rather than who they actually are, which this can actually be quite destructive, because it means that you're trying to make this person a perfect version of what you would like rather than who they actually are, and it can create a shit ton of disappointment. Disney films, not the best thing to really educate yourself with, especially when it comes to reality, but it can basically force you to come into reality. That's basically what that Lilith is for your Pisces sign. So for you guys, daydreaming, sex, porn, anything to do with drugs, alcohol can be very intense with this sign. So if you have a tendency to go there, be very aware that that is something that you may dive into when it comes to dealing with your emotions. And sometimes it's easier to just deal with them and actually look at your emotions, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's easier to go into those addictions, because Pisces is all about those addictions. So it's really important to work with balance along with that, and to realize that if you feel yourself going down that route, really realize and look at, why am I possibly doing that? Things like extreme daydreaming can also be a really strong sense of escapism, and it can also mean, like I say, that you tend to perfectionize things. You tend to make things to be a perfect way, when actually accepting them as they are is very important, and not to try and be perfectionistic about certain people and certain things in your life, and to realize that actually things as they are can be very beautiful. For you guys, you want to understand people and yourself on a very deep level. If you really integrate this, then it can mean that you become very wise. So really integrating this can allow you to become a very wise person, and possibly become famous because of it as well, kind of like the wise old owl. So for you guys, on the flip side, because Lilith can be, I want that, but I don't want that. I fear it, but I want it. That's what Lilith is. And for you guys, spirituality can be a very scary thing. It can be like crippling fear for a lot of you guys, and a lot of you guys would rather physically touch stuff than actually be able to feel things. It can be quite scary for you to feel things, and you can become quite anxious because of it, and therefore you can also manifest not being aware of your emotions, especially negative ones. Like, you try to avoid them like the plague. So for you guys being very creative, things like psychotherapy and hypnotherapy can be really good for you guys, and can help you to integrate the illusionary side of you, because Pisces is very much to do with the head and integrating your kind of spiritual side, the mind, it can really do wonders for you. So because Pisces is a very dreamy sign, for you guys to really work with it, things like working with photography, storytelling, writing, acting, anything to do with creativity, art, anything like that can be a massive help for Pisces, because they're very dreamy and they like things that are to do with fantasy. So it's really important for you to have a healthy outlet, and this will make dealing with Lilith a lot easier. Lilith is intense, girl. She needs help sometimes. She needs a little bit of assistance. So for you guys, because drugs is kind of a really big thing, psychedelic experiences might come into play a lot. So for you guys, your intuition is very strong, and because your intuition is very strong, you can tend to kind of not be aware of what's an anxious thought and what's intuition. So for you guys, protecting your energy field, very, very important, and to realize not to go too deep into it, and to not always follow every instinctual thing you have, because it might be coming from fear. Really not to fear everything though, like be curious about things that come up for you as well. So for you guys, because Lilith is very similar to Libra, it's this sense of kind of like not being able to trust people or trusting in the wrong people. So for you guys, it's really important to have very strong boundaries, because you can tend to be in contact with people who take advantage of you, and also putting your trust in the wrong people. So trying not to have those intense illusions about people and being very in reality and being very much like this is how it is will help protect you from people that basically want to take from you rather than give. So for you guys, you can tend to play the victim. You can be somebody who gives away your power. It's also really important for you guys to not repress and reject unpleasant emotions. Very, very similar to Libra. Like, you guys can basically avoid anything unpleasant like the plague. Like anything that is uncomfortable, just shove it under the rug or just avoid it. And this is going to become very unhealthy for you guys. So it's really important for you to deal with your shadow side, to work with these unhealthy, uncomfortable emotions, and to realize that you guys are extremely intuitive. Like, you guys are one of the most intuitive signs. So don't feel like Pisces is kind of like something that is going to hold you back. Like, it's such a beautiful thing, and it can help you to become much more comfortable with your intuition, and realizing that sex and intuition are very similar, they're very connected. So you want to make sure that you're in your body when you become physically intimate with other people, and realizing that your relationships don't always have to be quote unquote perfect. As long as they are perfect for you and they make you feel comfortable and you feel loved and appreciated, and you have that relationship being reciprocated back to you, girl, you're on a roll. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this Lilith in Pisces. Have a great day. And my rates for my readings and my crystal shop are below. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.